Welcome to the 80/20 show presented by your host, Jason Yee. Good morning, everybody. So in this podcast, or in this broadcast, first off, I am Jason Yee, the one that pleasant voice earlier said is hosting the show. This is Train 2.0, and the reason I'm here is to uncover the hidden instructions, the underlying source, if you will, of the Hockey Wizards' magic, what looks like magic, and maybe it is. We'll find out. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I see a lot of surface level drills, a lot of surface level thinking that doesn't target the actual cause, the actual effect that creates the magic of the Hockey Wizards. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's for you. It's 100% for you. To you, the dedicated player, the dedicated parent who wants to take their learning and their thinking to the next level. And today I want to share with you, I'm on day 3 right now of the Patrick Kane challenge. There's no open ice on the weekends because I don't play minor hockey anymore, and I just don't think that is a thing on the weekends. So I'm relegated to off ice training. And so yesterday I spent a large amount of time off ice training, illegally training, secretly training on a tennis court where I was not permitted, but I was anyway. That is the kind of maverick that I am. And I was using the green biscuit and just practicing different patterns. And so what's not obvious about Kane's stick handling, because the thing that I did was I looked closely at his videos, and the one thing that you'll actually notice is that the four-puck way of stick handling is actually where he's most dynamic. That's where he's moving the puck around his body the most. But if you look at the multi-puck, he's actually less dynamic. He actually simplifies his movements, but he includes faster dribbles. And then the interesting thing that I found was that these faster dribbles and just kind of the weaving in and out of the pucks is actually a much simpler movement than what he was doing with four pucks. So for me, it's less about, right now, it's actually less about training a dynamic movement and more about training the pattern. And the pattern is this, okay? Here it is. He does something more precise with how the puck moves in an arc on his blade than what most people do. You see, most people require like 2-3 touches to make the puck move in an arc, right? They might actually require literally 2 different touches or 3 different repositionings of their body. But the way that Kane stick handles is kind of like with this pushing, curving motion, which I will share with you. I will share tidbits online, and I'm going to share the full secrets in the membership area as they become more easy to describe and show. But yes, he uses an actual kind of like arching movement every time he stick handles, which requires less movement, less input when he's stick handling. So that's what's not obvious. That's something you don't see or feel as different. And you might be saying like, oh, like there's tons of great stick handlers these days, and there might be, right? But I can see there's a lot of kids I see with really, really great hands, but there's only a few that kind of understand the arcing movement, right? And this is literally magic to some people because I can explain it, but it takes like a little bit of explaining. But this type of arch of the movement, this arcing movement of how he rolls his wrist and pushes the puck at the same time, is quite unique. There's not a lot of players that do this, and that's what kind of allows him to have that flowing movement. So go back, watch my Instagram videos, watch my very first attempt, and watch how it's kind of blocky and choppy and very linear. and then watch my latest attempt and watch how it has this kind of flowing look to it. It's almost like some sort of, I don't know, lightsaber combat. The flowing style, the Ataru. That's one of the 7 forms of combat, I think. Qui-Gon Jinn mastered it. And if you guys know me, you guys know that I'm the ultimate Star Wars nerd. Yoda was also a practitioner of the Ataru form. So it's this circular flowing movement that is very different than what we see, these kind of linear choppy movements from a lot of stick handlers or hockey players. So there's something very, very different going on that's not immediately obvious. The precursors to that is the grip, right? The grip changes everything. The grip changes absolutely everything. And then for me, the next part of it has been to, like I say, learn the patterns. And I'm going to give a little tidbit of that on Instagram today. I'm going to get out to the forbidden tennis courts again and and practice the Kane's mechanics. But it's very interesting to see how there's or feel, I suppose, that there's literally a very different style to the stick handling. And you can see it. You can visually see it if you look at my first Instagram post to my last Instagram post, right? You can see the difference. And like I said, I'm kind of just repeating myself here because I have some time to kill. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them, because in about 10 minutes, I'm going to do something very cool, which is I'm going to a sword play class. Let me look up what it's actually called. Just a second. I'm going to be learning, swordplay. I am taking a swordplay class in a little bit. So I'm going to learn the arts of the longsword, sword and shield, and poleaxe. Why? Because I thought it'd be interesting. I thought it would be interesting to see how someone relates to a long object, right? Like you would use in hockey, maybe, for example, like a stick. Be interesting to see what they talk about for wrist position, shoulders, hands, all that stuff. Maybe it contrasts with what we know about hockey. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Does Kane use the hip swivel? Yes, he does. All NHLers use the hip swivel to varying degrees. But Kane's stick handling mechanics are kind of this different art, to be honest. And I'm not sure. There's like this really great footage that someone captured of Kane coming in and doing a very good hip scissor. It's like from the top. I think it might have been Stride Envy. It's like from the top, view down, and he comes in and just hip scissor, no problem. So he uses that often, and I think that's what he also uses to set up his trapdoor, right? So he'll hip scissor in and then cut back. So he uses that all the time. And then he also does something very different with his top hand and the pattern he's using to push that. So anyway, that's what's not obvious about his stick handling that I'm going to share, and you can kind of practice his drills, so to speak, but until you get the pattern of, and you can even have dominant top hand mechanics, which is something that everyone understands, but until you kind of understand how he moves the puck on an arc on his blade, just pay attention, just watch and see what I mean by that. You don't necessarily, you haven't grasped how he does it yet. That's from my experience, because I could do his drills previously, but it would be choppy, it would be slow, and very linear rather than flowing. Another guy who has these mechanics dialed in as well as Kane is Datsuk. So you watch them; they have this very distinct flowing type movement where they're moving the puck on an arch, or on an arc, I should say. So that's what's not immediately obvious about Kane's stick handling that I wanted to share with you, and I will be showing the members in depth, and I will be giving hints to others on Instagram. And that is what I have for you today, and I know there's about a 30-second delay here, so I might have time for one more question. If you have it, ask it quick, because, like I said, there's a 30-second delay, and I need to go take off. I always feel bad when I take off and then the question comes through, so that's why I'm waiting. Now's the time to ask it if you have one. Maxi's asking, what can I do to improve wrist strength? I don't think you need to. Because the way the mechanics work, if you're using NHL grip code, is that's going to just naturally take care of itself. So by that I mean, you put yourself. Yeah, I mean, this is what I think. Tell me if I'm wrong. But if you're using NHL grip properly, you don't need a ton of wrist strength. It'll, because the wrist comes out of the equation and most of your control is happening from the elbow and shoulder. So I'm not sure you do. Oh, another interesting thing. I don't think Kane uses behind around the back when he's dribbling. I think it's I think that's a bit of a misnomer. I think it describes a little bit about what's happening, but not everything. So that was kind of an interesting finding as well, because in order to get the same speed on his wrist movement, you can't really do around the back, but you can and should do it. I think what that does is it emphasizes the wrist roll and the top hand mechanics, but I don't think that it explains everything, which is interesting. Okay, is there any player whose mechanics you would apply, or if there's any NHL player whose mechanics I would advise player to emulate, who is it? Erik Karlsson, Patrick Kane, McDavid, there's Crosby. I mean, you know, watch those guys, Tarasenko, like we can go on. Almost all of them have mastered it to some degree, and then some use it more than others. But what really causes a player to stand out at that level, they all have magic mechanics, right? What the difference is they're fantastic formulas. They're magic formulas. When are they firing them off, right? Every single guy can do a hip scissor. McDavid can do it the fastest at speed on the rush, right? Every guy can do a 10 and 2. Every single guy can do a 10 and 2. Crosby can do it under pressure more often. So anyway, I'm hoping that this answers some questions. Interesting to share. Wanted to share it. Gotta run though. Thank you guys very much for watching. And here comes the intro. Outro. Thank you for watching and listening to the 80/20 show hosted by Jason Yee. Be sure to check out more at train2.0.com.